Mike, for a while, this strike was becoming almost somewhat predictable. Sean Fain's been very unpredictable about where he's going to strike, but we sort of had a pattern going. Every Friday there would be a Facebook Live announcement. Last Friday there was no expansion, and then we had a midweek expansion just this week.
That's right. It was very unpredictable and surprised a lot of folks at Ford, not only for how it happened, but for what happened in the course of the day. So roughly mid-afternoon, Ford got some notice from the union saying they wanted to have a 5 o'clock offer from the company. They wanted a comprehensive counteroffer on the economics. So things like raises, bonuses, COLA, stuff like that. And then they said, oh, and we also want to have a 5:30 p.m. meeting at Ford headquarters. We're going to bring our entire negotiating team. We're going to bring the VP, Chuck Browning, and Sean Fain will be there too, by the way. Ford was under the understanding that they didn't need a counteroffer. They felt amongst the Detroit Three, they had the best offer currently on the table, and that they were going to spend this week really drilling into a couple issues that were hanging things up, things like the battery plants, retirement security, pension versus 401k. That's what they thought was going to happen. All of a sudden, the union calls this meeting. They don't have a new counteroffer because, again, they felt they had the best one on the table. They walk into this room. Everybody sits down at the table. We're talking 50, 60 people deep, right, on the union side. Jim Farley, Bill Ford aren't even there. They have a prior commitment, other interviews and things of that nature. They're not in the building. Ford says, we don't have an updated offer. Sean Fain says, well, if that's all you got, you just lost Kentucky Truck, stood up and walked away. The union really wanted more from Ford and expected more from Ford. So there was some miscommunication there.
Sounds like they didn't give Ford a very clear notice of exactly what they were looking for.
Exactly. They only said they wanted a updated offer. They didn't even tell them we need you to hit a certain benchmark on wages or cost of living or pensions or anything like that. They just said we want a new offer. Ford didn't have one.
And how does this, I think some executives at the companies have felt like, and I think Ford has used the term like preordained or predestined. Did they feel like they were getting set up?
I think so. We have some reporting that folks within Ford about an hour before that meeting happened got some intel that the union was going to strike Kentucky Truck. And then if you look at what happened, 5:30 meeting lasts about 10 minutes. Well, at 5:44 p.m., the union accidentally tweeted they were striking Kentucky Truck, deleted that tweet within minutes, and then at 6:30, 45 minutes later, actually posted it because that's when the walkout was scheduled. So you could easily make the argument maybe that the union had this in their back pocket. They knew what they were going to do, and Ford saying that's not really fair.
So you said they accidentally tweeted it. They didn't say that, but it's the fact that they took it right down kind of looks like they didn't mean to tweet it, at least at that time. But it also looks like they wrote it maybe even before the meeting started.
Exactly, because as far as we know, the meeting ended, that tweet went out within minutes.
Wow. So this move adds about another third to the number of workers that are on strike. But with such a big plant and such a big moneymaker, one that generates $500 million a week in revenue, it might have a lot bigger ripple effects than some of what we've seen so far.
There could be a whole lot more workers either on layoff or on strike in the very near future because of this. Ford says Kentucky Truck impacts about 100,000 workers, both Ford owned and supplier related, about 13 facilities, including more assembly plants. That you have a stamping facility within Kentucky Truck that also walked out Wednesday. They supply Louisville Assembly. They supply Ohio Assembly. And you have a bunch of stamping plants and engine plants in Michigan that feed into Kentucky Truck. So the ripple effect just grew that much more, even compared with what we've seen already these first 4 weeks.
And then the fact that we're getting into some of Ford's most popular, most profitable vehicles probably is also going to start having a lot more effect on dealers than a lot of the actions we've seen so far.
And if you think about it, with Super Duty in particular, they just redesigned that model. Dealers are just starting to get new versions of those big trucks, and now they won't be able to. They're supposed to redesign the Navigator and Expedition very early next year. So this is not ideal in terms of timing for Ford.
Very rough timing. And we were just on a LinkedIn Live with a Ford dealer who said, this is the time of year when a lot of companies buy their Super Duties. I think there's some of the tax write-offs that go into it. Like fourth quarter is a really big time for businesses to make investments in vehicles that they can use, and of course their business expenses, so they can expense them against their income. If they don't have them to sell, they can't sell them.
And that's a really important point, because if you look at Ford's commercial business, it's even more profitable than its regular retail business right now. It's the thing that's making the most money for the company, and they just lost probably their biggest product.